With streaming, we can bring you a much different and much better experience than what you get when watching traditional television.
Assuming you're not too young, you probably remember what life was like prior to the age of high-speed and high-quality video streaming. It was a dark, primitive period in human history. Of course, given my age, some of my fondest childhood memories leading up to high school are inextricably connected with watching movies on pieces of physical media, be they VHS tapes or scratched-up DVDs.
This is DVD.
My parents sometimes bought copies for a living room setup, but more often than not, we would rent movies from our local Blockbuster. It's important to remember that prior to the chain eroding completely in 2014, Blockbuster was the video rental place, and indeed my first encounters with more niche cinema came from roaming the aisles of that begone store.
So if you're gonna win, better make it a Blockbuster night.
I specifically remember my mother renting a copy of the Oscar-winning German film The Lives of Others, when that movie's hype was still very much fresh in people's minds.
An jenem Tag im blauen Mond September, still unter einem jungen Pflaumenbaum.
Yet, while the act of holding a physical copy of a film made in a far-off country has a weirdly intimate charm to it, on a more objective level, it's also quite limiting for any moviegoer with even a passing interest in world cinema. Not everyone has the means to go to a store every week to rent out movies. Then there's the problem of the fact that rental stores will always have limited selections, with less mainstream foreign films also being less likely to be included.
I've never seen 10,000 tapes in one store.
There's so much kid stuff.
And I can keep them for 3 evenings.
I don't remember ever seeing a copy of Rashomon on Blockbuster shelves, despite it being a landmark title in world cinema history. The game has changed in recent years, though, and for the better. Advancements in streaming technology and web design, not to mention the growing accessibility of high-speed internet, has allowed moviegoers to watch thousands of movies from the comfort of their own homes. I'm here, however, specifically to talk about the increasing availability of foreign films in saturated streaming market. Netflix's path to world domination has been a long one, believe it or not. Some of us remember the Netflix of many years ago as being the service that would mail DVD rentals to your front door.
You just make a list of the movies you want to see, and you'll get your first DVDs in about 1 business day.
But did you know that Netflix had started streaming platform back in 2007? In all fairness, the initial streaming library was only a minuscule fraction of what it is today, and this was also at a time when high-quality streaming had yet to become the norm. By the time House of Cards premiered in 2013, though, Netflix had become a titanic platform where whole households could explore a vast catalog of movies and television instantly. No mail-in DVDs required.
What if you're thinking,
Let's get a new movie right away.
with Netflix, you mail them back and wait.
Cut to 2018, and Netflix has released one of the most important movies of the past decade. Roma is a slow but enthralling Mexican drama directed by Alfonso Cuarón, who started out as the international circuit before gaining mainstream traction with films like Gravity and Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Alright, well, sorry about that. That's enough for today.
Netflix marketed Roma aggressively, despite it being a non-English film, and the result was both mainstream exposure and unparalleled awards buzz. This was after Roma had already won the Golden Lion at that year's Venice Film Festival. Since Netflix announced it would start disclosing viewership numbers in 2021, it's hard to estimate how many people watched Roma on the platform, but its impressive box office numbers in select theaters indicate nothing short of a success.
¿Qué haces? Ya dime.
No puedo. Estoy muerta.
Regardless of any setbacks, Roma, a Netflix original movie, set a new standard for world cinema's presence in the minds of American moviegoers. It would become the first Mexican film to win the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, now Best International Feature Film. with Cuarón winning Best Director and Best Cinematography. If the more recent success of South Korea's Squid Game tells us anything, it's that a movie or show on Netflix doesn't have to be in English to become a hit with English-speaking audiences. Since the advent of consumer-friendly home video over 40 years ago, perhaps no company has done more to bring world cinema to American viewers than the Criterion Collection. Criterion, in collaboration with its parent company Janus Films, has released well over 1,000 titles, from both the Anglosphere and abroad, in a multitude of formats. You can find all of Criterion's spine-numbered titles on DVD and/or Blu-ray. In 2021, it started releasing titles in 4K Ultra HD. Not only does Criterion release hundreds of foreign films, many of them previously obscure, but each title is given a high-definition restoration. Future generations can enjoy such classics as Seven Samurai and Persona in pristine condition. Only fairly recently, though, has Criterion entered the streaming market in earnest. But trust me when I say that the wait was worth it. For much of the 2010s, Criterion had a fair portion of its catalog hosted on Hulu, which would evidently turn out to be too constraining a partnership. In 2016, teaming up with Turner Classic Movies, Criterion would play a major role in launching the now-defunct Filmstruck, a streaming platform with top-tier content, but also some serious technical issues.
All the waves. All the greats.
With Filmstruck's demise in 2018, Criterion decided to strike out on its own. Thus, we saw the launch of the Criterion Channel in 2019. What we have here is the finest collection of films from around the world, classic and contemporary, in the palms of our hands. Speaking from personal experience, I can say that the early days of the Criterion Channel were a little rocky on the technical side of things. To this day, not every video in the catalog is available in high definition. The content, however, more than compensates for any shortcomings, as we have international classics by the likes of Akira Kurosawa, Ingmar Bergman, Wong Kar-wai, and the late Agnes Varda. I probably would have never seen a somewhat forgotten gem like Black Orpheus were it not for this particular streaming service. More so than with their lineup of titles available only on physical media, Criterion has gone above and beyond to represent women filmmakers and creative people of color with its streaming platform.
And I started to look to see where that representation was.
I sometimes find myself in a contrarian position, but I think it's also fair to say that HBO Max is the single biggest streaming platform to come out in the past few years. It's also the latest edition of the three services discussed here, having launched in 2020. Suppose you're running tight on cash and you feel you can only afford 3 streaming services. You already have a Netflix subscription, and you also have Prime Video as part of your Amazon Prime subscription, which leaves you with one slot open. If you're passionate about world cinema, then the Criterion Channel would be a near-perfect fit as a way to unlock a certain treasure chest of non-English films. If you hover closer to intermediate than expert, though, with regards to world cinema enthusiasm, then HBO Max is the best option.
HBO Max, where HBO meets so much more.
Whereas Netflix is ultimately more focused on binge-worthy television programming, and the Criterion Collection is all about shorts and feature films, with the occasional miniseries thrown into the mix.
Jag måste tala med dem någonting. Jag minns det så förskräckt ut, inget farligt.
HBO Max has a remarkably balanced catalog of movies and television. The platform is split into several hubs, covering disparate categories, providing at least a little something for everyone. Be it a superhero show like Peacemaker,
Shortcut to your dreams, I blow straight to the stars on that flying thing.
Episodes of Steven Universe.
Oh my gosh, you're so cute!
The unimpeachable works of Studio Ghibli. or even classic movies from around the world. The hub dedicated to Turner Classic Movies is the one most relevant to world cinema enjoyers, as while we get classic American productions like Casablanca,
He's looking at you, kid,
and The Wizard of Oz.
And my head, I'd be scratching while my thoughts were busy hatching if I only had a brain.
We also get some overlap with the Criterion Channel's catalog. HBO Max is not exactly cheap. Assuming you want to forego ads, an ad-free subscription will cost you $14.99 a month as of January 2022. Comparing prices, HBO Max ranks similarly to Netflix, the Criterion Channel being the cheapest of the three, if we're discounting Netflix's basic subscription plan. But with HBO Max, you get arguably the most value for your money.
HBO Max is home to the greatest shows and the latest hit movies.
I've only covered what I consider to be the three most essential streaming platforms for those who want to explore cinema from outside the Anglosphere. There's no shortage of alternatives, if you're looking for something on a smaller scale. Two platforms specializing in art house cinema that immediately come to mind are Fandor and Mubi, not to mention Shudder as a horror-themed companion platform. Indeed, with all the services available that at least tangibly feature foreign films in their catalogs, a strongly Anglo-centric service like Disney Plus can almost strike one as a bit of an outlier.
Disney Plus has the greatest movies and shows of all time, which means they got all the goats.
Even with all the ways you can experience world cinema though, there is a simple question that remains. Why bother? Why put all this effort into watching movies that aren't produced in Hollywood, or even in English-speaking countries for that matter? I would answer all this with another question. Why should I deliberately limit myself to only a small fraction of all the good movies that have ever been released?
Torto sei, questo lo devo mettere di nuovo dentro quando smontiamo la pellicola, santo diavolone! Ma peggio di una piattola, sì.
Subtitles pose a slight inconvenience, true, but the excuse of not watching a movie with subtitles because you're forced to partake in some reading is a waning one. There's never been an easier, more convenient time to dive headfirst into world cinema than now.
जैसे लड़के ने कभी किसी से प्यार नहीं किया?
अफेयर्स तो बहुत हुए, लेकिन प्यार कभी किसी से नहीं हुआ, सेनोरिटा.
And we wouldn't be here without the enormous range of streaming services available in our television sets, in our computers, even in our phones. When Bong Joon-ho's Korean smash hit Parasite took home the Academy Award for Best Picture in 2020, that historic victory reinforced a message that now rings clear as a fine blue sky. Foreign films are here with us, and there's no going back.
Once you overcome the 1-inch tall barrier of subtitles, you will be introduced to so many more amazing films.